Well, here we sit on Monday morning. Is HS2 a dead duck? It does look like it, doesn't it? And Labour Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham is saying that cutting the HS2 rail link to his city would leave second-class citizens in the north with Victorian infrastructure.
Well, the high-speed line has faced delays, cuts and billions of pounds in increased costs.
Phase 1, between London and Birmingham, is, of course, already under construction. But the eastern leg, between Leeds and Birmingham, was scaled back in 2021.
After announcing delays back in March, Rishi Sunak is now said to be considering scrapping the leg between Birmingham and Manchester. Andy Burnham joins us now from Bolton. Right, well, let me put the case to you, Andy Burnham, that this is tens of billions of public money and the costs keep going up and that money could be better spent, even in your region, on health, on local transport, on schools. It is irresponsible to keep ploughing this money into a rail link. What's your claim about HS2 reaching Manchester?
Well, morning, Susanna. What I would say in response to that is, if you speak to people here in Bolton, but anywhere actually across the north of England, we have to put up with daily chaos on the railways. And why do we have to do that? Because we have Victorian infrastructure across the north of England, and it can't cope with the capacity that is needed. If the government pulls the plug on HS2, in effect, it will be leaving us with that Victorian infrastructure for the rest of this century, when the southern half of the country has HS2 between London and Birmingham, the Elizabeth line, well, you name it, they've got everything down there. It would be a recipe for the north-south divide to become a north-south chasm. And that is why we're saying to the government today, don't pull the plug on it. We want to see that kind of north, south, east, west infrastructure put in place to give us a modern rail system right across the whole of the UK. But this decision could completely pull the plug on that.
You say could and you say if, but I mean, anybody experienced in politics or covering politics would say over the weekend, looking at the way government spokesmen are coming out and what they're actually saying, the mood music is crystal clear. They're going to pull it, aren't they? It's a dead duck.
Well, it would seem so, Richard, and you're right. I've been around in politics and it doesn't look good. But I'm writing to the Prime Minister this morning with the leader of Manchester City Council, and we're going to say two things. Firstly, at least do us the courtesy of giving us a meeting. You know, all of this has been through briefings in newspapers. People here have been left completely in the dark, completely cut out of this conversation. Well, that is just not right. This decision is of epic proportions for the north of England, and our voice should at least be heard. We should have the chance to make our point. And if they did agree to that meeting, what I would say to the Prime Minister is this: don't scrap HS2, because it is going to be the infrastructure that provides the capacity the country needs. But we could be open to a conversation about building the northern section first, the east-west section across the north, or what's called Northern Powerhouse Rail, with an underground station at Manchester Piccadilly. You know, there could be a rephasing of this to make the costs more manageable, and we think that's a reasonable thing to put forward. The north of England needs that new infrastructure. London hasn't been forced to choose between whether it gets north-south or east-west. It gets everything. Why should it be the north of England that always has to choose? Why should we always be treated as second-class citizens when it comes to transport?
What would you say to Sir Keir Starmer on this? Because, of course, with the polls as they are, it looks quite possible that Labour could win the election. Is it something that you think the Labour leader should commit to?
It is, and I would be wanting to make that case to Keir, as well as, of course, to the government. We think this infrastructure is needed. If you travel on the railways anywhere in Europe, it's completely different. Ours are chaotic at times, and the country can't function with the railway infrastructure that it's got. But it's why I'm putting forward this idea today that we build the east-west railway in the north first. That would have strong support from people here in Bolton. I think it'd have strong support from people across the north. and maybe build HS2 then a little later on. The point is, the infrastructure provides for both of these rail lines. And that's why scrapping HS2 is basically pulling the plug on new railways for the north of England.
Fine, I was sort of very ahead of you. I knew you were going to finish by saying that. Just talking about the next election, you will be aware, don't deny it because you know it's happening, that there's a grassroots bubble going on in the Labour Party that wants you as leader. They think that you would stand a much better chance of winning the next election comfortably than Keir Starmer would. Any thoughts about that?
I'm standing to be the Mayor of Greater Manchester in May next year. You may see behind you, Richard, as this interview has progressed, yellow buses that have landed across our city region. Well, they're still a bit of a mixed colour at the moment. But overnight at the weekend, we retook control of our buses after 40 years of quite disastrous deregulation. We're cutting the cost of public transport here in Greater Manchester today by 20%. I'm standing to be Mayor of Greater Manchester next year because I want to complete the B network. That will be our London-style public transport system, and I'm on a mission to do that. I love the job that I'm in. I feel energised, I feel passionate about what I'm doing. I'm speaking for the north of England, standing up for Greater Manchester. That's what I'm really focused on doing, and I'll be supporting Keir all the way to get elected next year, because when we've got a Labour government as well, then the north can finally get what it deserves.
All right, Andy Burnham, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for your time. Looks like
You're
a nice day
welcome.
out there.
Thank you both.
I think
Thank
it's
you
picking
for
up
yours.
here as well.